Welcome everybody to Two Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room. It's a single drunk dude today, but that's all right, man. We got Scotty Hastings here today. Scotty, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Scotty Hasting. Got that right. But I am a Nashville singer, songwriter, recording artist, combat infantryman, um, actually wounded in combat, and yeah, shot in Afghanistan, and decided to make music my form of therapy, my way of kind of helping myself mentally.
Absolutely, man. When I was going through your bio, and I actually got recommended to have you on the show from the Contagion Effect. They hit me up on Facebook.
Oh yeah, yeah, those are great dudes.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm actually going to be on their show the second, March 2nd. So
Heck yeah, man. That's
yeah, I'm
awesome.
looking forward to it. So
Yeah.
going through, I know on your profile you've got the video, but for the people that don't know, if you don't mind talking a little bit about April 21st, 2011, man.
Yeah, April 21st, 2011, we were on patrol. I was with the 1st Infantry Division. We were in the Kandahar province of Afghanistan, which is kind of more of the southern region of Afghanistan. And we were going to suspected bomb maker's hut and gonna kind of, tag and bag him and try to figure out what the hell's going on in that area. Um, and on the way, we so in Afghanistan, you don't want to walk in the same direction for too long. You don't want to be predictable. You don't want to be predictable. So you have to do unpredictable things. You have to move in unpredictable ways. A lot of times that causes us way more work than what needs to actually happen, but it saves
Absolutely.
lives. Um, so we had walked in the same direction for a little bit, so we were, a lot of times if you're walking in the same direction in an open field, it's fine because you can see everything around you.
Right.
But whenever you start getting into big walls and things like that, you have to start switching directions because people can hide out anywhere. um like in Afghanistan, there's grape rows and stuff like that where they grow grapes, and I mean these grape rows are 4 or 5 feet high, and the walls are like 8 feet, so it's enough for them to be able to hide behind. But if you're in an open field, it doesn't matter. You can keep walking straight because you can see everything.
Right.
Um, but um, so we were trying to figure out which way we wanted to go. While we were sitting in this area trying to figure out which direction we wanted to go, there was a hut right in front of us. There was an older guy who was a part who lived in that hut, who was kind of walking around and trying to figure out what we were doing. Nothing, no big deal really, because everyone in Afghanistan tries to figure out what the hell we're doing because we don't belong there, and I mean, they make you feel like you don't belong there.
Yep.
And Yeah, they all want to know why the hell we're in their area.
Yep.
So they all look at you like you don't belong, but what are you doing? So they watch you for a little bit. Um, but the biggest issue was that this guy kept coming back around his hut and trying to see what we were doing. And then he would do it again and do it again. And then eventually everyone started taking notice that this dude was definitely watching us for some reason. Um, whenever people start trying to show too much attention, then something's a little fishy. A lot of times they're, over there, they'll look at you, they'll try to figure out what the heck you're doing, and then they just kind of go like, all right, well, you're not bugging me. I'm out of here. But yeah, so him coming back around and really watching us was really starting to make us feel a little uncomfortable. So it was time to move. What we had decided to do was kind of go right alongside of his hut, jump over an 8 foot wall um, into what they call a road. We would call it a freaking sidewalk. So I don't know how they drive on those things, but I mean, hats off to them. I've said this many times. I don't know if the people in Afghanistan are the best drivers I've ever seen or the absolute craziest drivers I've ever seen, because they will literally drive on anything at any time. Like you're talking like 8 people on a motorcycle. I mean, it's just crazy stuff you thought you'd never see in your life. Um,
Absolutely.
and So yeah, so basically we went alongside the right side of this guy's hut, jumped over the wall, and then we decided to go left, which basically took us right in front of this guy's hut. Whenever we decided to go left and we started walking in front of his hut, whenever you walk in front of someone's house, they stand at the doorway. If they know you're there, they will stand at the doorway because they want to know what the heck's going on. They really don't give you that opportunity to kind of break open a door and just come in. So he wasn't standing at the doorway. He was nowhere. The dude disappeared, straight up disappeared. When people disappear in Afghanistan, shit's about to go down. Something is
Yep.
about to go down. We're about to get shot at. Um, so, um, so I had the Valiant operator. I was in front. Um, Came up on a wall to the right, because what happened was, so there was the road here. The guy's hut was like right here, and then right here the road kind of went this way. So there was another really long wall that was right
Mhm.
here. So there was a guy hiding right at the corner of that wall, which was, to me, it was maybe 10 yards, maybe. Um, so naturally, I noticed him. He noticed me. But again, he looked like another guy who's just like, "What are you doing here? You don't belong here." Blah blah blah. So I went back to doing my thing. I went back to doing my Valen operation because I had the Valen, which is the metal detector that we use to detect the IEDs that are in the ground. Um, so I went back to doing my thing because my mission, my priority at that time was making sure that you know, our area of movement was free of anything that went boom.
Yep.
So I went back to what I was doing, and then all of a sudden I saw him move really quick out of the corner of my eye. When I saw him move, I basically squared my whole body up against, to him. Like they teach us in training, you square up, then you pull the rifle up and fire. Um, I squared up to him. I dropped the Valen. I went to reach for my weapon. By the time I reached for my weapon, he had already started shooting. He had a PKM that he was hiding behind his back that I didn't see. And the only reason I know it was a PKM is because while I was getting shot, I noticed the nut sack. Well, we call it the nut sack,
Yep.
but on the rifle, and I thought it was weird because we have nut sacks. I didn't realize that everyone else has them, and that's why I was like, "What?" Also, in Afghanistan, you don't realize how much of our shit they actually have.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you go to like these little markets, and they have like legit like our stuff, like EOTech freaking sites and stuff, and you're like, dude, what? Like how do you have this? But yeah, so he had the nut sack on the heavy machine gun, and he just kind of pulled it up and started shooting. He basically went up my body, so my left thigh got hit once, my left hip got hit 4 times, and then it went up my chest to the right, so it went from left to right, up me. So my shoulder got hit 5 times, and then there were 2 rounds that basically went into my rifle and went into my plates, through my plates, and basically left a nice little bruise on my chest.
Yeah.
But yeah, so um, after getting shot, I fell to the ground, and I basically raised my weapon and tried to shoot him. He stood there for a second. You could tell that he was trying to fix a jam, because heavy machine guns are very reliable at one thing, and that's the fact that they're going to jam at some point.
Yep.
So his jammed, and he was trying to fix it, trying to adjust it, and then he looked up and looked at me, and I looked at him, and he realized that I wasn't dead, and I was pointing my rifle at him, and he took off. He just dropped his weapon and took off running. But he got his 100%. He definitely got his. My buddy Fant put a 2 or 3 round in his chest while he was running. He said
Good.
it was the most amazing thing he's ever seen, and it was kind
Good.
of like a quarterback, like leading the wide receiver perfectly. It was just like boom, and then it was just like boom. Yeah, but
Absolutely. I'm
yeah.
glad. I'm glad he doesn't play for Dallas then, because he probably wouldn't have caught
Well, he caught it. He didn't have a choice. Um,
it.
but yeah, so I mean, then I laid there, and I was the beginning of an ambush. In the video, I'll go into a little bit more detail with like a diagram and everything. It's really hard to talk about without having the diagram, because it's so much
Yeah.
easier for me to be like, yeah, there was a team here and there was a team here, and yeah, it's so much easier that way.
Yep.
But yeah, so I was the start of an ambush. There was a little break in the wall that there was a team of insurgents that were firing at the rest of my guys. Um, and yeah, the medic basically just said screw this and took off running at me and came and started, doing what he needed to do. Um,
Mhm.
of course, I was real bad. Um, and yeah, at some point I had lost so much blood that I actually lost my eyesight. My eyesight shut down.
Damn.
In my opinion, this is what I consider called when people say they see the light, because your eyesight shuts down and it's just white. It's just like a white film that goes over your eyes. You can't really see anything. It's just white. But I could still hear. I could still talk, and yeah, and literally the whole time it was just me trying to fight going into shock, because in your training you learn that the
Yep.
biggest killer of of combat injury, the worst thing that you can do is go into shock, because more than likely you're going to die if you go into shock.
Yep.
So I literally fought and fought and fought, tried not to do that. So I was cutting up with my buddies, making jokes, like we normally would,
Yep.
just hanging out with the boys and like we normally would, just telling jokes. And that's really kind of what got me through it, was the will to want to fight, because there's a point where it would have been easier for me to give up.
Right.
I remember very, very clearly that point. And I remember how it how peaceful it felt to just think about the idea of just letting go, and how just really like how peaceful of a feeling that was. um Really, like it was so much harder to fight than it was to just be like, all right, done. But
Yeah.
I'm still here. So but then eventually got on the bird about 40 minutes later and went to Kandahar. I was awake and alive the whole time, talking, literally just trying not to go into shock and just trying to keep my mind focused on something else.
Yep.
By this point, I was in incredible amounts of pain because the adrenaline had worn off. And Yeah, they had finally gotten me some morphine, like when I got on the helicopter. But when you're shot up that much, man, it doesn't matter. Like, it
Yeah.
still hurts.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
remember being in a lot of pain. And So finally got into Kandahar. When I got into Kandahar, they immediately put me in a trauma bay and they started administering blood, because I had lost so much they had to put more in me. So when they started putting blood in me and they started siphoning it through my system, my eyesight started coming back. And it was funny because when I told them, I was like, hey, I can see, like I'm starting to see again. I heard this nurse lean down and tell me in my ear, it's okay for you to go to sleep. And as soon as I heard her say that, I passed out. Um, I have no idea who that nurse was. I have no idea who those people were, but they're amazing and they absolutely saved my life. And Yeah, I mean, as soon as I heard her say that it was okay to go to sleep, I did. I passed out. And then I woke up like sometime the next day. I don't remember. But yeah, and then eventually, hung out in Kandahar until I was able to travel to Landstuhl. And then on the way in between Kandahar and Landstuhl, I had lost pulse in my arm. So they had to make an emergency stop at Bagram and take a vein out of my right leg and replace the artery, which is amazing. That modern medicine is
Yeah.
so incredible, at the sense that you can take a vein and turn it into an artery. Because I know growing up in science class, we were told that veins and arteries are completely different things.
Yep.
But apparently, what we were told was very wrong.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until I seen your video.
Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea until the doctor was like, "Oh yeah, it'll grow to the size of an artery." And I was like, "What? Where has that been? Like, that could have been a test question in anatomy, man. Like, like no one would have known that. Like, that's amazing." Um, but yeah, I mean, it was finally got to Landstuhl. And when I got to Landstuhl, it was basically just them trying to make sure that I was well enough to get to Walter Reed, because that's a hell of a lot longer flight than
Right.
any of the other flights that I had up until that point. And I remember we were in like a C-130. I think it was a C-130, some type of cargo plane. I couldn't really tell. I do literally a lot of it was a lot of blur,
Yeah.
but I do remember like bits and pieces of it. I remember my flight medic on the C-130 was incredible. He was an amazing dude. Um, I remember being in incredible pain and wanting to push the button and just like just kept pushing the morphine button, man. Just kept pushing it, pushing it. And then finally got told that I can only actually get it every 15 minutes. And I was like, who designs these stupid things or something like that? And then like give me as much. I want to be as close to ODing as possible if we could get there. And I remember it being incredibly cold. So that's kind of why
Yeah.
I thought that it was a cargo plane in some way, shape, or form, because it's very cold if you're up there.
Yep.
Like there's not a lot of insulation on those guys.
No.
Um,
No. What do
but
you remember? Was the seats only on the outside, or did they go down the center?
I don't. I think I remember seeing the seats on the outside, and then the rest of the plane was litters, and we
Yep.
were stacked up in bunks. So there was a guy below me, and then I was on top. And then like literally the whole plane was kind of like litters all throughout the plane. Um,
Yeah, it's probably a C-17.
I knew it was a cargo plane. I mean, you could absolutely
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah.
And then when I got into Walter Reed into DC, I got on the biggest ambulance I've ever seen in my entire life, which was really cool. And I was on the ambulance with the colonel, um, Colonel Hester, who was actually in charge of oh God, what is that? Not Hood, Bliss. He was in charge of
Bliss.
Fort Bliss for a little bit. Um, so I've seen him after or whatever. But while I was in the ambulance, the biggest ambulance ever, I was talking to him, and he was like, "Man, like what happened?" Blah blah blah. We were talking, and I was telling him, and he's like, "Man, that's a pretty good story." He said, "But remember, you're the one that gets to tell the story. So not only did you get shot 10 times, but you jumped on a plane, you got hit with by you really make it yours, make it." I was like, okay, all right. No, like what? This isn't good enough. Like me getting shot 10 times isn't good enough. Okay, I'll make it bigger. I basically Rambo'd this whole thing, and I'm just. Um, but yeah, I mean, he ended up becoming a really good friend, and you know, his wife and him, they keep up with me, and that yeah,
That's
they're
good.
awesome. Great people, man. My mom my mom calls him G.I. Joe because of his raspy voice. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, they're great people. They were at Fort Riley when I got to Fort Riley, they were there, so we got to reconnect again and hang out for a little bit. But yeah,
Well, I can vouch for one thing in your video. You said that you didn't know who it was that was hiring the nurses in Landstuhl. My daughter was born in 1998, so that guy had to have been there before then because it was the same situation.
see, I'm telling people don't understand unless they've been to law school, and then you're like, bro, like you have no idea. Whoever hires these people is a genius because that like literally some one of like the prerequisites to work there was like, hey, we're gonna have injured soldiers coming in. We have to have good looking nurses. And listen, I'm not just saying the female nurses were good looking. There were a couple male nurses. I was like, bro, you look good. Like, whatever. Like I don't really roll that way, but I can appreciate a good look when there's a good look, and
Yep,
but
they
yeah, I
met the
mean, whoever
qualifications.
hired those people, geniuses, man, absolute
Yeah,
genius.
absolutely, man. I think the two biggest things I took away was when you said that, and then you said how much easier Afghanistan was compared to the States.
One
Brother,
hundred percent, man.
I have said that so many times. People say
Yep.
that don't make no sense that if it's so traumatic, why are you willing to go back? And I said,
Yeah.
you don't understand. All you worry about is get up, do your job, stay alive, go to sleep.
one Hundred
That's it.
percent. 100%.
Yeah.
And you're there to take care of your brothers, man. And
Yep.
literally it's so much easier. There's not a whole lot of responsibility that you have other than to survive and to help take care of your brothers.
Yep.
And that's easy. Like shit, we're taught that from the beginning of military of the training of basic training of going through everything that we do. That's easy. That becomes ingrained in us. So
Yep.
that's an easy thing. But yeah, then you get back to the States and it's like now you have bills and you have these responsibilities and these responsibilities. And it's just like, Jesus,
Yep.
man. Like being
And
deployed
it's
is so much
one
easier
rule.
because yeah.
Yep.
I
It's
mean
one
it's
rule
it's the
after
Wild
another.
West, man. It's the Wild
Yep.
West out there.
Yeah. And over there, man, just like you said, the rules were limited.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had kind of that same schedule. You
Yep.
ate together, you worked out together, you worked together,
Yep,
and
absolutely. You knew you were going to go on patrol every other day. You knew what you needed to do it, and you knew, when you were going to go do your shift on the towers. Like it was
yep,
super easy. Everything was laid out in front of you. Um, you knew what needed to happen. You knew how to do it, and you knew how to survive because that's a basic instinct that
yep,
we are taught. Um, and it's just like there's so much because of the way that the military trains soldiers. Like there's so much that's just naturally ingrained in us. Especially being an infantryman. Like there's just so much. I mean, I know how to fire a weapon very proficiently. Like I
right,
know I know how to fight an enemy. I understand that. That's super easy. That becomes incredibly ingrained into our brains where it just becomes you don't even think about it anymore, right? It just
yep,
becomes natural. Um,
absolutely,
so yeah, that's super easy. And then you get here and it's like, okay, well, what I would do, if I had a disagreement, I can't do here, or
yep,
if I wanted, if there was, there's no you truly realize when you're getting out of the military how many freaking hours are in the day. Um,
yep,
because when you're in the military, every single hour is planned for, right? Like you get up, you go to PT, you go back to your house, you take a shower, you change, you go to your unit building, and you go to whatever training you have that day. Every
yep,
single every single hour of the day is planned from the beginning
yep,
to the end. And then you get out and you're like, fuck, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, man. I feel like I've been awake for 5 hours. What am I doing?
yep,
Like, well, I need to find something to do. And a lot of times that leads to, the quietness, and that leads to the demons that creep into the minds. That leads
yep,
into all the stuff that, you're trying to avoid. You don't have a way to avoid it now. It comes flowing in, and it comes flowing in quick. And,
yep,
a lot of people, and I was just talking about this not long ago, is a lot of people, instead of finding something, like I did, or like others have, instead of finding something, a lot of times it's easier to pay for some cocaine or some
oh yeah,
some alcohol, or
yep,
it's way easier to develop an addiction where you just numb everything,
yep,
because then those thoughts they go away. And as veterans, that's what we look for. If
yep.
as a combat veteran, as someone who's been in combat who struggles with their demons, I've always looked for a way to get out of having to deal with those demons, of having to face them one on one in the quiet while I'm alone. you know
Right. Well, you're not allowed to ever admit that you're broken,
yeah.
and if they can physically see your legs and your arms, you're not
Hmm.
broken. So
Yeah.
these wounds that can't be seen, and as a leader in the military, I was just as guilty as the next guy. It
Yeah.
came down from the first sergeant, you know, hey, this guy's going to go see behavioral health, blah blah blah, you
Yeah.
know. And next thing you know, he's your detail guy. He's the guy you're just shoving
Hmm.
off,
100%,
and
man.
I didn't even realize that I had an issue until after I got out. During
Yeah.
that transition, when the realism that the army was over for me and I was retiring and
Yep.
walking away, which is what I thought I wanted,
Yep.
you know, that's when, man, I just came back from a deployment, and I spent a lot of time alone in that deployment. And I
Yep.
started isolating my family away from me. I would come home, I would
Hmm.
eat, and I'd go to the bedroom, you know,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
it just went down one dark hill after another and after another until I
100%.
finally got help, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, and you have
And
to. And the problem is, with being active duty is like there is a stigma. There's a stigma of,
you know,
going to behavioral health, going to behavioral health. Now you become, people think that you're going to become a liability, like,
yep,
oh, well, he's messed up in the head. Like, now he's got to be rear D, and he can't go off and do his job, and he can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually they get processed out. Right.
yep,
And, and a lot of veterans who need the army for a paycheck to take care of the family, they're terrified of that. They're
yeah,
terrified that they're going to be thrown out, or that they're going to just be processed out of the military. So they just don't say anything because it's easier not to say anything.
yeah.
Right?
And
It's so much
and
easier than having to do all that.
and you spend so much time with the brothers at work. You don't want to be that guy that's on the outside,
100%.
because now not only is you got the stress at home with your family because of the worry that you're not going to be in the military, but now
Yep.
you go to work and you're not even part of that cohesion anymore. You know?
Absolutely. 100%. I
Yeah.
mean, it's you know it's very easy to lose. I'm gonna say this wrong. You can lose the trust of your brothers very quickly if you
Yeah.
start unfortunately, if you start talking about how messed up you are mentally and stuff like that.
Yeah.
um and that goes along the same lines, of this stigma that is behind PTSD
Yeah.
and depression and stuff. It's weird that in the military being alcoholic is okay, but having
Yeah.
PTSD is something we don't want to talk about, right? Like that
Right.
that's something that is not okay, because then you're a liability. Well, how am I a liability, talking about the fact that I'm having issues, but this person who's drunk doing stupid stuff, getting DUIs and things, he's
Yep.
not a liability. Like we're cool with that. And I feel like the military is starting to move in that direction where it's getting better. It's starting to understand the importance of mental health. But I feel like the stigma is going to be there for a really long time.
Oh,
Even if it's
absolutely.
with, even if what's in, oh Jesus, even if it's within like just the teams and the squads and stuff, all the units individually. Um, I mean, I feel like it's still going to be there. Yeah, the big army might, say, mental health is important, blah blah blah, but what are your guys saying?
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely different from what your guys saying. What your unit is saying. It could be completely different than what the big army is saying.
Well, you think about this, and I have always said this. If you actually calculated the amount of hours that they say you're supposed to have in all your different training, the kindler, gentler training, the
Mm-hmm.
EO training, the everything. If you add all that up, there's not enough hours in the year
Yeah.
for you to accomplish it. So a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of those classes, the ones that people think are bullshit,
Yeah.
i.e., this one, the
Mm-hmm.
the one about the sensitivity classes, you could tell they
Yeah.
were just like the guy standing up there was like, "Yeah, this is my detail. I got stuck doing giving this damn class."
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
real. It's real easy to breeze through a slideshow, man.
Yep,
Real easy to breeze through it.
yep. You can
Um,
get 40
and
hours
just
in 8 hours, that's for sure.
100%. Like, hey, we're just gonna do here's these slides, and now we're just gonna kill time for a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean that's
So so after you got out of Walter Reed, when did Guitars for Vets come into this?
oh dude, not till way later.
Really?
So yeah. So got to Walter Reed. I knew my guys were coming back to Fort Riley. It basically took an act of Congress for my congressman to write a letter and say, hey, he's leaving Fort Riley, or he's leaving Walter Reed. He's going to Fort Riley because his guys are coming back. Luckily, my congressman was a former Ranger. He knew the importance of wanting to be there for my guys. And I wanted to show them that I was still here. We had lost a lot of people, and I didn't want to be just another one that they lost. I
Yeah.
wanted to be there. I wanted to be there when they got there. And the congressman understood that, so he wrote a letter and made it happen. Um, Went to Fort Riley. When I got to Fort Riley, I knew that I was going into a warrior transition unit, which is now they're called soldier recovery units or something.
Hmm.
My dog's over here chewing on something. All right. So I knew that I was going to go into that because I knew that I still had a lot of healing to do.
Right.
While I was in there, that was when the Army was really pushing adaptive sports. They were really trying to get people, because as a veteran, and as someone who's in the military, we are very competitive, right? In
Yep.
the military, you compete for every position that you have, whether it be your promotion or the schools you want to go to. Like you're always competing in the military. So
Yep.
one thing that Big Army decided was a great idea was that they would really push us adaptive sports, this competition, this idea of getting soldiers back into that competitive nature, which
Okay.
was amazing, right? It was a great idea, absolutely fantastic idea. And for me, it was outstanding because I grew up playing sports. Like I had played semi-professional baseball before I joined the Army. I was making money playing baseball when I decided to join, and I needed sports. I grew up playing sports. Um, so when they said, "Hey, we'll try this, like these adaptive sports, we have all these other programs. Like, what do you want to try?" And I was like, "Dude, I'll try them all." Like, let's give it a shot, man. So I jumped into some adaptive sports, and then I did some other programs that they had, which was like an art program. They actually had guitar lessons, which I didn't want to do because I thought with my hand and my injury, there was no chance in hell that I was going to be able to play guitar. So I didn't even think about it, didn't even do it. And then they had meditation program, which ended up being like all the older vets just going in there and sleeping program. And I was like, dude, I can't do this because while I was at Fort Riley and I was in the WTB or the WTU or the SRU is what they're called now. While I was in the soldier recovery unit, I knew that I wanted to go back into the line. I wanted to go back in a line unit, and I wanted to continue being an infantryman and go back and fight. And this is what I wanted to do. This was my career, right? This is what I had planned out from the beginning, and and I knew that I was going to have to do a lot to get there. So I was working out. I was in pretty good shape while I
Yeah.
was doing this, and the idea of going into some room and meditating, basically sleeping, because when I first walked in and they were like, here's the meditate, like, we're going to be very quiet, but this is the meditation program. And as soon as I walked in, like, literally everyone was snoring. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. Like, this is the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was not about that. And then they offered archery, and I was like, man, okay, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I went to shoot archery, and originally I'm right-handed, but because of the nerve damage of getting shot in the brachial plexus in my right side here, um, I can't feel this hand. I have no feeling whatsoever. I have very limited movement. I mean, I can move these two fingers, and that's about it. Um, so I went to shoot archery, and because I can't feel this hand, I would punch the trigger, and I mean, arrows were just going, man. I don't know where they're going. They're just going. I shot like 3 arrows in the ceiling, and the guy was like, "Listen, you got to stop, dude. Like, we can't. No, you're done. We can't do this. Like, you're a safety risk at this point. Like, get out of here." So I was like, okay, well, whatever. Went back home and I was like, man, there's no way. Like, I'm way too hard headed for this, man. Like, you've told me I can't do it. I'm gonna find a way to do it. So I started thinking about like, maybe shooting left-handed. So I went in, started shooting left-handed because I mean this hand doesn't do anything. It just kind of sits there. So I can rest a grip
Yep.
on there. Um, so started shooting archery and kind of I really fell in love with it. For me, it was an escape. When I came up to anchor, it was 7 seconds of peace that I got right before I took the shot. And I was looking for that, just like everyone is. They're looking for that escape, that outlet, and I found it in archery. So I got better and better at it, and eventually I got recruited by the U.S. Paralympic program, and I started shooting archery all over the country and all over the world, and I'm technically still part of the U.S. Paralympic program. And I get paid as a VA athlete, and I still go out and I shoot, and I still coach. I still run events like the Endeavor Games in Oklahoma City, or in Edmond, Oklahoma, and different events like that. But um, then COVID hit, man, and I was bored.
Yeah.
Archery literally stopped. They said let's everything. The world stopped, man.
Yep.
Um, and I needed something to do. I mean, when the world stopped, it was right back into that mode of being alone and being quiet. And when it's when you're in when you're in the silence, that's when the demons come knocking, man. Like when you're just sitting there not doing anything, that's when the demons knock the loudest. So
Yep.
I needed something to escape into. I needed something to find that peace again. I had always had a guitar sitting in the corner of my room, and I decided, why not? you know I need to focus on something. Let me learn how to play the guitar. um, so I did. I deep dove into learning how to play the guitar. I jumped on YouTube, and literally, if you can learn anything on YouTube, and literally
Absolutely.
anything, if you're not using YouTube to learn something, you're using YouTube wrong, man. I
Yep.
mean, YouTube is such a huge category full of stuff that you can learn. It's incredible.
Yep.
But yeah, I learned how to play G, C, E minor, and D. I learned how to use a capo to, transpose different songs and stuff. And I was like, dude, I can play any song in the world now. So I started learning songs that I grew up listening to, right? A lot of country songs that I grew up in the '90s. I mean, nine in my opinion, the 90s was the greatest time for country music, in my opinion. So I started learning a buttload of 90s country songs that I had listened to and grew up on. And then eventually I decided, maybe I want to write some songs. So I started writing songs, slowly and surely. And I decided that I wanted to go and um, go play at a bar somewhere. I wanted to play. I wanted to do something, and with it being COVID still, because it's still in that time frame of COVID, and
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I can't go to Nashville because Nashville is legitimately a ghost town. So I can't go to Nashville. I got to go on the outskirts. Luckily, the outskirts of Nashville don't give a shit about COVID. So they're like, hey, we're open and you can do whatever you want. So they had an open mic night at a place, Red Silo is what it's called out here, out in Cookville. And I was like, man, I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna play like maybe one or two songs. I just want to see what it's like. I'm a huge believer on if you want to try something, bro, just fucking do it. If you don't,
Yep.
if you don't do it, you're never going to. So you just got to jump in. Um, and seeing what it's like. If it's something that you think is cool or you might want to give it a shot, just do it, man. At the end of the day, you got nothing to lose, bro.
Yep.
So I did. I just went on stage and I played, I think, two songs. I played technically it was like one song at a time because there was like a list, but I played the first song and I was like, dude, this is it. Like I'm hooked. Like this is it. When I'm on stage and I'm playing music, it was archery, that escape that I had found in archery. It was that on steroids, man. It was the one of the greatest feelings I've ever felt in my life. And I was like, dude, this is it. But this is what I want to do. So I knew from that moment on that music was something that I wanted to do. Then, I just started bugging the hell out of everyone in Nashville once COVID started calming down, and I started playing more and more in Nashville and stuff like that. And then I wanted to get better at guitar. I knew that there was only so much that I could learn on YouTube where I
Yep.
wanted to learn like more theory stuff and stuff that made absolutely no freaking sense to me whatsoever that I needed someone to explain to me. And that's where I started looking for something. And eventually I found Guitars for Vets, which is a nonprofit that teaches veterans how to play guitar. And it's like a 16-week program. And at the end of it, you get a guitar for free. I still have mine. I think it's somewhere back there. But um, at the end of it, you get a guitar for free, but they teach you how to play. And I reached out to the coordinator here in Nashville. His name's Patrick McGuire, an amazing dude. Literally everyone there is incredible. I reached out to him and I was like, listen, here's my issue. Like, I already play. I already have a basic understanding. Like like I've gotten to the point where I'm pretty decent. I know, some chords. I know some stuff. I know, what goes with what, blah, blah, blah. But I want to get better. I don't know how to get better. I need someone to help me. And he was like, perfect. Come in, man. I got the perfect person for you. And yeah, man, that he, brought me in, greeted me with open arms. And I was definitely the most experienced in guitar in that room. But it was cool because you had people who were brand new, right? That had never touched a guitar ever. And then you had
Yeah.
someone like me and Guitars for Vets, the national chapter, had the ability to have instructors that could teach both of us, which was incredible because I mean, sometimes you get in there and it's like I can teach someone how to get started, but I can't teach theory and I can't teach this and I can't teach this way of strumming and stuff like that. And
Right.
that's what I was looking for. I was looking to try to tighten everything up and really learn a little bit more than where I was at that moment. And Mark, good friend, really good friend now. Me and him, we still keep up with each other. He was my instructor, and I mean, he was all about it, man. And he taught me some amazing stuff. He taught me some, a nice little blues lick that I use every once in a while. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was incredible to see that when I went in there with the experience that I already had, because at that time I was already like a full-time gigging musician, and I was playing downtown. Like I was very into music in Nashville
Right.
at that time, and they were still like open arms, man. Yeah, come on in, man. We got someone that can teach you. We got someone that can teach this guy who's never even touched a guitar before. Like it was really cool. And the community, the Guitars for Vets community, is just incredible. And then it kind of took off from there, man. After I graduated and I met with the owner, Patrick Nedeshim, and the founder, and he was all about my story, man. And just like, hey, and I told him, I was like, I told him and Patrick McGuire, the coordinator here in Nashville, I was like, listen, I want to do what I can to help. Like I think that this idea and this mission that you guys have is unbelievable. Like the idea of using guitar and how using it to help somebody with their mental health, which is literally the reason why I learned how to play guitar. I
Yeah.
think this is I wanted to be a part of this. Like, what do I need to do? And then it just took off, man. I started playing events for Guitars for Vets. I was on the news with Guitars for Vets. I've played two of the Rock to Remember shows. Um, I was actually given a guitar from Guitars for Vets. It was a J45 right here, Gibson J45. It's the Proud to Honor series, which is like one of 9 guitars ever made. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'm all in about Guitars for Vets, man. Anything they ever need. Patrick Nedeshim has my number now, and he'll just randomly call, be like, "Hey, man, I need this. What do you think?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm all in, man. So now I'm a Guitars for Vets ambassador, and I wholeheartedly believe in what they're trying to do because it's literally what helped me.
I'm I'm
It's
gonna tell
learning
you,
how to play guitar.
I didn't actually know anything about Guitars for Vets. I learned that from the Contagion
Yeah.
theory too. And
Mhm.
then, so I started doing some research on them, and I didn't know you was actually a part of it. And at the same time, the same guys introduced me and you together.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing you post stuff about it, and I was like, "Holy cow!" I seen the full circle, and then
Oh yeah.
I watched that Rock to Remember,
Yeah.
dude. I couldn't put the computer down. I mean,
Dude, it was
it was
great.
amazing.
It
Yeah.
was so great. Yeah, and then we did one last year that was amazing too. It was 100% virtual, and it was fantastic. But yeah, I mean this one was really cool. I mean, it was at Gibson Garage. Like Scott Stapp from Creed was there, man. It was cool. Dave Mustaine from freaking Megadeth, Emerson
Yeah.
Hart from Tonic. I mean, like
Yeah.
absolute legends in the industry, period. And they
Yep.
were there playing, man, and I got to be a part of it. And it was, I mean, I am beyond blessed to be able to call the Guitars for Vets people family, man. And I mean, it's really it's that they've really opened a lot of doors. Them, and then there's other organizations that I really support out here. Guitars for Vets being definitely one. Operation Encore, which is a nonprofit that supports veteran artists to help them get their music out there and help them get
Okay.
gigs. And it's unlike anything else that I've ever found anywhere else, where this is 100% like, if you're a veteran, you're an artist, let us help you make your music available, like whether we have to produce it, whether we have to any of that. Guitars for Vets has helped a lot. They Operation Encore's helped, and then Creative Vets. Man, Creative Vets, Richard, the founder, is a really good friend of mine, and he's the reason that I got to open for Dave Grohl, man, in Arizona, and it was freaking awesome. Dude, that was the best show I've ever got to be a part of, ever, ever. The Rock to Remember stuff for Guitars for Vets was really cool, but this, I mean, it was hosted by Crown Royal, and Dave Grohl was there, and I mean, it was a whole nother level, dude. I mean, it was unbelievable. Yeah, I've never experienced anything like that.
I seen your Facebook post. I could tell you was excited.
Oh my god, man, it was awesome. It was so cool. Well, I'm a country dude from Nashville, man. Like I never thought in a million years like I would ever have the opportunity to open for Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters. Like what? Like how? In what world does that work? But
Yeah.
luckily, Dave Grohl loves country music, so it worked out really well. But but yeah, man. I mean, it's just there's been so many doors that have been opened through these uh through these veteran organizations that are just, I mean, yeah, man, I'm blessed, dude. Absolutely blessed.
That was, so I'm gonna have to get with you offline about the that other organization, because that was exactly my thought process with this radio station that I'm trying to put together.
You talking
Was
about the Operation Encore?
Yep,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
you
I
know,
like Creative Vets. Creative Vets uses they basically help heal veterans through art. Whether it be like painting or sculpting or songwriting or teaching like how to play an instrument, stuff like that. The cool thing about Creative Vets is that they will take a veteran and they'll put him with a like a number one hit songwriter, and then they'll put a veteran like myself or like Richard, who's the founder, but he's also a Marine. They'll put us in that room together with them because we can kind of be the bridge between the songwriter and the veteran, because there's a lot that veterans talk about that civilians may not understand,
right.
and then there's a lot that a songwriter talks about that this veteran might not understand, that I can kind of bridge the gap between the two. Um, and it's really cool because eventually after they write that song and um, once that gets done, a lot of times they'll bring like a legitimate like artist out, like Aaron Lewis or uh God, there's so many they're just a part of so many different country music artists, like big country music artists that are like signed to label, like that are signed to Big Machine records, because they have a deal with Big Machine. So there's legitimate like artists that are coming
Right.
in, and they take these songs and they record them,
Oh
and
wow.
it becomes like this whole thing, and it's really cool to like, because those words, that the feeling, that idea, that story that that veteran came in and wanted to talk about and wanted to say, it becomes a piece of art,
Yeah.
in the sense that it now has, it now has a voice in a way,
Yep.
and that's really cool. I mean, that's something that a lot of places don't offer, being able to hear that and being able to be a part of that. And a lot of that will come back to where, if that artist is doing something and it involves that song, they will bring that veteran out to that wherever they're at doing that. And they're like, hey,
That's
we're going to play your
awesome.
song. Like, you want to come hang out and be a part of this event? And they're like, yeah, great. So it becomes like a whole thing, man. And it's amazing. And I absolutely support, Creative Vets and what they're doing, as well as Operation Encore and, Guitars for Vets. Like for me, those are my big three right now, man. I mean,
Yep.
they're really good friends of mine. I know everyone that's a part of it all, and I mean, I support everything that they do.
Absolutely. I'd love to sometime to sit down with them and get them on the show and pick their brain, because
Yeah,
absolutely. So we started this show, me and Doug, the other host. He's not here today, but we started the show because we went to the VFW.
yeah,
I retired out of the military, and I opened up my own trucking business, and I, personal reasons, I ended up having to separate from my family and move back to Missouri and take on another job. And my old first sergeant, Doug, is the
yeah.
one that offered me a position here. And so I took it. And, we didn't find the support that we thought we was going to find when we went to the VFW. You know, it,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
definitely not what we were looking for.
yeah. There's, unfortunately, with it seems like with the new generation of veterans, it's a lot less VFWE type of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, you can tell that the VFWs are starting to lose numbers because the older people are starting to die. Unfortunately, it's a part of life, um, but yeah, it doesn't seem like the newer generation of veterans really you want to use VFWs and stuff like that as an outlet,
I
which is
think
crazy
it's
because
the
VFWs are great.
some of them are, I think it's the atmosphere, the
Yeah.
outside guy comes in,
Hmm.
and our first experience was just like you said, in Afghanistan. Everybody stares at you to see what you're doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
then they open up to you. But even after you start getting in, you go to the meetings, you start realizing that there's levels to this clique. And
Yeah. Oh yeah.
we couldn't they wasn't doing anything really that we seen for the veterans.
Yeah.
So me and Doug started this podcast
Yeah.
just to bring like-minded people and different resources that we talk to that we can vouch are literally for the veterans. And we just turned ourselves into a hub, to
Yeah,
where
it's awesome.
if somebody says, hey, I got this problem, I can say, hey, I know this resource, you
Yeah,
know
that's amazing.
and that was kind of, down the line, we're not, I don't ever expect to be no great podcast, but at the end of the day, if I get to reach veterans, and talking to veterans has
Mhm.
helped me tremendously.
Yeah,
It has allowed me to open up, and this podcast has made me a little bit more creative than what
yeah,
I've ever thought I could be. So,
absolutely. And then the idea of just being able to, if we can help one person
yep,
at the end of the day, that's what it's about. And that's a lot of why I play music.
yeah,
There has been moments where it's like, um, I was on like a TV, like a songwriting competition show.
mm-hmm,
And at the end of it, at the finale, they were like, "Hey, we have a band together. Like, you don't have to play guitar if you don't want to. I know that your hand is messed up. You don't have to if you don't want to. We have a band. You can just sing." And I was like, "No, I don't play guitar because I'm the greatest guitar player in the world. I play guitar because I'm broke as hell. And if someone sees me up there playing guitar, I want them to be like, well, dude, this guy has a messed up hand and he can play.
yep,
Like, what is stopping me from doing this? Whatever it is. What is stopping me from pursuing this? And then at the end of the day, that's what it's about, man. Like, if I can help one person through what I'm doing, that for me, that means that I'm doing what I need to do.
yep. I completely agree, man. And that's, when I talk to some of these other people, I always tell them, we're not out here competing with each other. I know
Mm-hmm.
veterans like to be competitive, but at the end of the day, if you have a good organization, I'm going to refer you to people that
Yeah,
you can help, because
absolutely.
I want to help vets, and I want people
Absolutely.
to
I,
help vets.
I'm the first one to, if it's a veteran-owned organization or a business, absolutely. I'm the first one to jump on it. Yep, I'll help
Yep.
you out, bro. Like, I have no problem. Like,
Yep.
I'm here to help, man. Like us, the veterans, we gotta help take care of each other, man. I mean, at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like, there's a lot of organizations out there that can help with things. But at the end of the day, we have each other's backs, and we have to have each other's backs,
Yep.
because no one can help take care of you like someone who's been in your shoes.
Yep.
Um,
You know,
and that's something like it's. I don't know if you're ready to get into the song, but there was a song that I wrote called "The Stories That They Tell," and it's literally like we as veterans have no problem talking about certain things with other veterans, but if you
yep.
put our family in the room, we might not talk about some things. But
Yep.
someone who's been there, I'll talk to them about anything, man.
Whether you
I
know
got
them
no
or not.
problem. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can be
Yep.
complete strangers, but if you've been in the same AO as me, man, like we can have a conversation.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and it's there's there's no one out there like that. Maybe first responders, but more
Yep.
so veterans than anybody.
There's an organization um, in Colorado. It's called and it's the first organization that I've ever seen like this. It's called Expedition Therapy, and
Yeah,
he takes veterans out there, and they do, hiking and rock climbing and like really extreme stuff, right?
yeah,
So I had him on the show, and there was a component to it that I haven't seen anybody else do. He doesn't take big groups.
yeah.
It's 3 or 4 veterans, and you have to bring your families. And
Hell yeah.
he's the first one that I've seen that takes, a treatment for PTSD and integrates the families
Hmm.
with it, and until I got help, I never talked to my wife and my kids
Oh
about
yeah.
any of this stuff.
Yeah. No, there's still certain things that I won't talk to my family about.
Right.
But again, I have no problem talking to another veteran about it because they've been in their shoes. Um, but yeah, it's really cool, like having the family integrated and stuff like that. I've noticed that there's a lot of non like organizations now that do stuff like that are really starting to bring families into stuff and do it all, which is
Yeah.
freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. I think a family acts as a unit, and I think if one of them is struggling, they all come together. And I support it, man. I love it. I love that idea. Um, Yeah, man. I know that like there's like Project Healing Waters and stuff. They'll do that as well. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that's really cool that
Yep.
that are starting to.
And I like to see that it's outside of a psychiatrist's office. It's kind of like what you said. You got your wife, you got yourself, maybe the kids there,
Mhm.
and campfire talk goes around, and maybe things. You got a mediator there that can kind of translate
Bridge
it.
the gap.
Yep.
Absolutely, man. That's
Oh,
and that's really what it's about, because there's a lot of stuff that we as veterans, don't want to say, maybe because we're ashamed of it, or maybe because, it's something that we don't want people to think, differently because of us. But there's also like a lot of it that we don't know how to say
yep.
what it is, especially to someone who we don't think would understand.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to have like that bridge that can be like, hey, this is what we're talking about. That would be able to put it at, that level to, someone who hasn't been there, and really help them understand, which is really cool.
I need to hire that bridge to come to work with me because
Oh yeah,
you know
man.
when I
Absolutely.
got out of the military, I went straight into my own business, and
Yeah.
now that I'm working for a company, I had one of my employees that worked for me. He texted me and asked me a question. He's asked me where I was at, and I said I'm at the chow hall.
Oh
And
yeah.
he looked at the guy next to him. He said, "Where the hell is that?" The guy looked at me and said, "I
That's
think he means
awesome.
the lunchroom."
Yeah, that's awesome.
You're right. I mean, the language is different,
Yep.
and even I tried to bring in that competitive side,
Hmm.
and it doesn't work the same with civilians that it does with the military guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
You know,
and it's not just language. I mean, yeah, we have a very specific like language that we use, but it's also like a mindset. There's a lot of veterans that have a completely different mindset than a regular civilian.
yeah,
Someone who's been in active combat, they're gonna have a little bit different of a mindset than, someone who hasn't ever been there, and it's
right,
it's understanding that mindset and where it comes, not only understanding the mindset, but also where it comes from. Like
yeah,
why this is what it is. With me, when I went to therapy, I wanted to understand. Like, I'm a huge guy about, I want to understand why the hell I am the way I am.
yeah,
So when I went to therapy, those were the questions I wanted answered. Like, why does my brain work like this? Why am I doing this? Why is this a thing? Why? So I just asked a bunch of questions. I was like a 7-year-old kid, like, why, why?
yeah,
But I want to know, because it's incredibly interesting how much like just one deployment, or just being in the military, not even getting
yeah.
deployed, just being in the military for however much time, how much that can completely alter someone's way of thinking and their
Oh,
mindset,
absolutely. Yeah.
um, compared to there's a normal civilian living life. um, and yeah, it's incredible, it really
Yeah.
is.
So we touched on the song. When did you actually start writing it and come up with it? Was it
um
during the COVID time or
no, well, kind of. So the song that we're talking about is a song called "The Stories That They Tell."
right?
That idea had been on my mind for a really long time, on my heart for a really long time. It really started at Walter Reed, um, and it was just this. At Walter Reed, there's not a lot to do. You go to your appointments, and sometimes you can go on like little excursions throughout DC, but whatever. But you go to your appointments and you basically come back, and there's like a giant like day room. It's basically a lunchroom, but everyone usually kind of hangs out there. Um, but I noticed that a lot of the veterans would just kind of like tell stories, right? They would just talk about, their time in Iraq or their time in Afghanistan, and this guy and that guy, and this guy that they lost, and this guy. And I did a lot of like just people watching, man, because there's some entertaining ass people out there. Uh,
There is.
Especially the Marines, man, that were just, it was crazy because like these Marines were like amputees that were in these power chairs. So it was funny because there was a Marine amputee who was in a power chair, and then there were other Marine amputees and other amputees that were in just regular wheelchairs. And the guy with the power chair would be in the front, and everyone with a regular wheelchair would like be on like on basically making a train of freaking wheelchairs, and they would just ride through Walter Reed, and the guy with the power chair was in front, and everyone else was holding on. And it was literally like a train of wheelchairs. It was freaking awesome, absolutely awesome. Um, but yeah, man, I mean, it was astonishing to see that they had no issue talking to these veterans, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these guys didn't know each other. They had no idea who they were, but they knew that they were injured in combat, and they knew that they were in the same place that they were in at the time. Um, and how it was amazing to see how easy it was for them to open up to each other.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where this idea of the stories that we tell each other came from. Fast forward now, however many years, almost 10 years, and I'm hanging out with my mom one day because she's like, I'm gonna go buy a new car. I'm gonna hang out. I had already started playing music. I had already released one song, my first song called Truck It. I'd already released that, which is kind of just like a fun song that I wrote with my buddies that was, just a fun, like summertime roll the windows down and blare it song.
Hmm.
Um, and I still had songs on my mind that I wanted to write, on my heart that I wanted to write. I had written a lot of like love songs and stuff, and I thought, it's really time to really step into music and really work on writing stuff. So I was hanging out with my mom. We went to the Cadillac dealership here in Nashville, and she got herself a car, and the car dealer that she was dealing with, the salesman, was the son of the president of Black River Entertainment, um, who is the label that is has signed Kelsey Ballerini, and they have a lot of other acts that are amazing. They have a lot of other artists that are amazing. Um, and he was like, "Man, if you don't mind, like I'm gonna send Truck It to my dad, who's the president, and to this guy named Doug Johnson, who is the head A&R guy through Black River Entertainment, and kind of tell them your story a little bit, and then send your music over." And I was like, "Yeah, man, like sure, whatever." Like I didn't think anything of it, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then probably before we left, no, I take that back. Probably like a couple days after, I had gotten a call from this guy by the name of Doug Johnson, and he was like, "Man, I would love to meet you, like shake your hand, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Sure, like I'm gonna go meet with a freaking record executive. Yeah, I'll go meet with him. Cool, hell yeah, absolutely." Um, so I met with him and talked to him. I actually ended up meeting with him and with the president of Black River Entertainment, who was this guy's dad. Um, his name's Gordon, and so I met with them, and we were just kind of talking. I told my story, and talked about songwriting and music and how it has helped me and how it's become like an escape, blah blah blah. And Doug was like, "Man, I want to write a song with you." I was like, "Okay, I don't know who this guy is, but yeah, I'll write a song with you." Then I agreed to that, and I went back home and I googled Doug Johnson, and I realized that Doug Johnson has done some shit. He is he's the guy who wrote Three Wooden Crosses. He wrote Love Like Crazy by Lee Brice. He wrote She Won't Be Lonely Long. The guy basically discovered and made Blake Shelton who Blake Shelton is.
Yeah.
He was basically the guy who had discovered a lot of artists and made them who they were. Um, I was
Wow.
like, okay, this guy is legit, legit, legit. And I at that and I the problem is I shouldn't have done that because I went into this write with him knowing that he was a hit songwriter and that he was who he was, and I was nervous as shit. And it took a minute for me to open up after
Yeah.
that, um, but it was cool because he was like, "Man, what do you want to write about?" And I was like, "Listen, I have this idea of a story of why we as veterans tell the stories that we do. I love the, and by that time I had a title. I wanted it to be called The Stories That They Tell. And I wanted to talk about why we as veterans tell the stories that we do. Because for those brief moments in time, um, when we're telling the story, the people that we lost and the loved ones that we lost overseas, our best friends, our brothers, our sisters, for those moments that we're telling the stories, they're alive again.
Yeah.
Whether it be in our hearts or in our heads, like they have substance. They're alive again. Like we see that. And he was like, let's write that. And I was like, okay, perfect. So literally maybe 40 minutes later, we had a song called The Stories That They Tell. It was unbelievably quick the way that how fast that song came to be. And I mean, ever since then, I've written with Doug all the damn time now. Doug has become a mentor of mine. Black River Entertainment is the label that I'm in the process of working with right now, and it's really developed and built into a family relationship,
Good.
to the sense where I can just walk into that building and go up to the president's office and be like, "What's up, man?" And just kind of hang out, which is definitely something that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
But every song that I've done since then, I've recorded at Black River. Almost every song that I've written that is getting recorded, I have written with Doug Johnson, which is amazing. I mean, I don't know how I got lucky enough to be able to write with a legend like Doug Johnson, but I am. And literally, he's become like a mentor of mine. He's really developing me as an artist. Really showing me, what I need to, take it to the next level. And now we're talking about doing something else, that we want, that is basically going to become like a subsidiary label to the Black River Entertainment label, which would be it would be a label strictly for veterans and first responders, who are artists.
That's
And it would
awesome.
be to support them and to support their music and to get it out on digital platforms and really to just, move them forward. And that was kind of an idea. We have a name for it and we know what we want to do. And that was kind of an idea that Doug came up with. And I was like, man, that's amazing. And
Yep.
they basically want me to be the guinea pig and the front man for it and really get it moving and get the gears turning on it. So it's
Absolutely.
yeah, man, it's gonna be a lot of fun, man. But I mean, it's like I said, man, I'm just blessed, man. There's been opportunities that have opened up that I couldn't even imagine. Um, Actually, we're recutting one of Doug's songs. A lot of veterans know this song. It's called "Till the Last Shot's Fired." Originally, Trace Atkins cut it,
Yeah.
and it was on the Wounded Warrior project. It was their song on their commercials for a very long time. Um, but Doug was like, "Man, let's redo it," and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we're recutting it, we're re-recording it. Um, Actually, I just had Lee Bryce on it, so Lee Bryce is going to be on it. He's picking up a verse and a chorus, and we're working on getting other artists to jump on it with us. We have a wish list that we want. We want Garth Brooks, we want Dolly Parton, we want Willie Nelson. I mean, there's definitely a wish list of people that we want, but we're working on getting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
we got the first up. We got Lee Bryce, which was a huge win for us. Which again, man, another opportunity I never thought I'd be able to be a part of. I mean, we went out to his farm where his studio is, and I mean, it's incredible, man. I
You,
mean, I've been blessed, man. Very, very blessed.
I always told my soldiers, whenever they got promoted, I always told them, you're not being promoted because of what you've done. You're being promoted of what you're going to do.
Yeah,
And I think with life, doors open for that same purpose.
yep,
The doors that are opening for you isn't because of what you've done. It's because of what you're going to do,
yeah,
you know. And I think it's just that path is taking you to reach more people, and I think it's
yeah.
amazing.
Well, I talk about like being a veteran and what my mission is as like what I'm trying to do. Being able to help veterans, being able to show them that you can do anything, bro. If I can be up here playing this damn guitar, singing my songs, you can literally do anything. Um, and I never really, of course that was like kind of what I wanted to do, and it never really came to fruition until Arizona when I opened for Dave Grohl. Um, a buddy of mine who I wrote probably the hardest song I've ever written in my life. It's called "How Do You Choose," um, and it is a song that I played while I was opening for Dave Grohl. and it was to a room full of veterans, man. So everyone was crying. It was crazy. But a couple days, the day after, my buddy who I wrote that song with, Jesse Wayne Taylor, through Creative Vets, because he's like the in-house songwriter through Creative Vets here in Nashville, and he got a text message from a veteran who was like, man, like I was having a rough time and all this, he was just real down, like real down and just really having a hard time. And he texted Jesse Wayne Taylor was like, dude, this guy who got shot 10 times is up here playing the guitar, talking about, his song, How Do You Choose, really, really touched me. Like it really hit me hard. And, if I'm, in my mind, dude, and here I am whining about my shoulder and all this other stuff. This dude got shot 10 times. Like, and he's like, man, I'm good now. Like if he can do this, I could like, and it was really like that, everything that I had talked about, everything that I had wanted, what in this music, like what I'm doing with my music, all of it just came together in that moment. And I was literally on the brink of tears when I saw that for the first time, because
That's
this is
awesome.
why I do what I do, man.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
it. Like that is it, man. And that was really like the first time that I got to see like proof of why I'm here. Um, and Doug, talking to Doug, he's like, dude, you got shot 10 times and you survived for this.
Yep.
This is it. He said, there's a lot of artists out there that are great artists and, that will revolutionize, country music. He said, but I have a feeling that we're going to change the world, man. Like we're going to show these
Wow.
veterans that they can do more than what they can do. And, and I, that's what I'm here for, man. It was the greatest feeling I've ever felt in my life. And it made me want to keep going. I was already, and it was crazy because I was already riding this high of the fact that I got to open for Dave Grohl, and it was freaking awesome, and it was the greatest show I've ever been to. And then to get that text message, it was like all of it just came together, man. And I was like, dude, like I did it. Like this is to me, this is success. I don't need $1 million. I don't need to be a celebrity. To me, this is success.
Yeah.
If I can show that I help somebody, that is success in what I'm doing. This is this
Yep.
is this is it. Um, and yeah, as soon as I saw that, I sent it to Doug, and he was like, "We need to get back on it. We need to get more songs out there. Like, let's go. Like, let's make it happen, dude." And it really lit a fire under my ass. It really lit a fire under his ass, and really just the whole label in general. It lit a fire under all of our asses, and it was like, dude, this is it. Like, this is why we are here.
Yep.
Um, and it was the most amazing feeling I've ever felt in my life.
Yep. I can relate, man. I've had people, that I don't even know just message me out of the blue and say, "Hey, thanks for that show you're doing. You really reached me." And yeah,
Absolutely.
I get it, man.
Yeah,
And
man.
and
I
maybe
mean,
I
it's
can't
that's
understand why, but I appreciate the fact that
yeah. I mean,
what
it's
we said
it's crazy
helped.
because like we're just doing something that we like doing.
Yep.
Like I like playing music. I like getting up there and singing. Like it makes me feel good. And to
Yep.
see that, you like podcasting, you like getting on here and talking to people, and to see that something that we enjoy doing affects somebody, it's like, dude,
Yep.
why? Like, what? Like,
Yep.
it's crazy.
Yep. I added a chat to our webpage, and I've had some people reach out to me, and you wouldn't believe, you know, I was always kind of afraid to do that because I'm no psychiatrist. I mean, hell,
Yeah,
I'm fucked up my damn self. So
absolutely.
to try to help somebody else, but what I quickly realized was half the time when somebody reaches out to me, we
Yeah.
talk about just bullshit,
Yeah, they're
and
just looking. A lot of times, people are just looking for someone to talk to, man.
yep,
Just and,
just to
and it
take their
can be
mind away
literally
from
about
it.
nothing, dude. It
Yep.
can, like, I couldn't tell you how many people I've talked to about music that just goes nowhere, man. And it's just because they want to talk. They want to have a conversation with like-minded individual,
Yep.
and that's at the end, dude. That's amazing, man. That's
Yep.
that's what we're here for, dude.
I
And that
agree, brother.
as an entertainer and as someone who is, out there and and it's crazy. I've had so many people, talk to me about, you're probably the easiest person to get a hold of. Like I've never
Yeah.
had someone who's like does what you do and will respond. Like there's been so many times like, man, I was not expecting you to respond to this comment. And I was like, man, I want to be accessible. Like that's
Yep.
what I'm here for. I'm here to help. I'm here to help. So let me
Yep.
be like I want to be accessible to people.
Yeah.
And
I'm not trying
I've
to
told
become a star.
dude, and I've told from the beginning, like no matter how big I get, I want to be accessible. I
Yep.
want people to be able to reach out. I want people to, be able to talk and be like, hey man, I'm going through this or I've been here and that, like I want to be accessible to people.
Yep.
Um, and that's what it's all about, man. And a lot of times, especially, there a lot of times there's just people who just want to talk, you
Yep.
know, they just want to talk about, the fact that we were in the same AO in
Yeah.
Afghanistan, or they just want to talk about the fact that, I play Gibson and they play Gibson and they love Gibson. And, it just being able to connect with people,
Yep.
that's what really matters.
Yep. When we first started this podcast, um, we really struggled. I mean, it didn't go anywhere for quite
Yeah.
a while. And when we were talking earlier, I was thinking about this that that mindset between veteran and civilian. I was
Yeah.
having a hard time getting anybody that really wanted to come on the show that was a civilian trying to help vets because
Yeah.
they read the title of the podcast and
Yeah.
that's as far as they wanted to go, you know.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I finally had to put a video out about, look, the name is literally something that veterans can relate to.
Yeah.
Most of us like firearms. We all have our drunk stories. Two
Absolutely, man.
drunks in a gun room is all it is. We're not a bunch of alcoholics sitting on here getting drunk. That's not what it's
Yeah.
about. you know.
Absolutely.
And since then, people have opened up. I had an organization that one of our listeners wanted us to bring on, but he passed, and I think it was again the name,
Yeah.
but that's fine. And at the end of the day, the ones we reach, you just keep
Yeah.
driving.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, what matters is that you're out here trying to help.
Yep.
There's a lot of people that don't.
Yep.
So, you know,
This winter, last winter here in Missouri, I didn't realize it. I seen an article, something about homeless people, and I thought to myself, I said, I wonder how many of those are veterans. So I Googled it, not
yeah.
really sure that there'd be a stat, but it literally broke it down state by state how many homeless veterans
Yeah.
are in there. And man, it shocked me. I
Oh
could
yeah.
not believe, Missouri being a Second Amendment state and everything else, there's still 644 homeless veterans
Oh yeah.
in Missouri.
Yeah. I
And
mean, there's a
California
lot,
had a
man.
third of the population, you know?
There's a lot. And then you go to like LA where I mean, it's real bad.
Yep.
Really, really.
So me and Doug decided we're gonna run a campaign this year. We're gonna try to get some jackets and
Yeah.
wet weather gear and stuff like that, and
Oh
try to
yeah.
get with the local shelters here and
Yeah.
try to get
Yeah.
some.
That's the next dream, man. I have an idea, if music ever does take off and I get to like that celebrity status, um, there's something that I want to do that would be really helpful. So there's an organization called Tunnels to Towers.
Yep.
Um, they started this as well, which is amazing because it was an idea that I had. I want to get an old hotel, motel, something like that, and have it enclosed. Nothing that like goes straight out to the street, like but having like it enclosed, and then housing homeless veterans. And in that hotel or motel would be job services, would be services to get resume, would be services to help people get records like military records, stuff like that.
Yep.
Giving them services to get on their feet, but also providing them a place to stay, man, like
Yep.
some type of roof over their head.
Yep.
But the main focus of it being helping them get on their feet. Having like a VA liaison that can get them in the VA system and can get their again get their records and get them seen by the providers that they need to be seen by. um Even if the providers have to come out, we would have like but having that ability to bring them all into one place
Yep.
and then having the availability of what they need being in that spot, I think would really just, in my eyes, I think that that's really something like kind of like a passion project for me. Eventually, if I ever do get to that level, that's where I want my time and effort to be spent.
So when you get ready to do that, you
Hmm.
let me know. I will put you in contact with I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Have you ever heard of Purple Heart Homes?
Yeah. Hmm.
So Brad Borders, I talked to him. So they recently, and the way I understood it was this last couple of years, they recently became a licensed manufacturer for tiny homes, and
Nice.
they're building tiny homes and donating them to the homeless shelters for veterans.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah,
I think that's right there in line with what you were saying.
absolutely. Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
and it's, I would love for it to be, like a hotel or a motel, something like that, something where it's a centralized point,
yep,
where they're all together, and having like an on staff psychologist or psychiatrist that they can go and talk to, or that they, if they're having a freaking hard ass time, they have that availability literally right downstairs. It's
and
not
that's what
like,
he was saying.
yeah,
He's like we're building the homes. He said, but there's so many underlying problems. He said you've got to solve all these other problems that come from all these
100%. I
different
mean,
places.
and that's the idea, is I want to not only help them, with their mental health and with their physical health, but also work on building them up into the future where they can become self-sufficient.
Yeah,
And try work on, having like job fairs and stuff, and having them in that area where we can get them a resume. We can get them, if they need a GED, help them get a GED, work on getting them to where they need to be,
yep,
to where they can become self-sufficient, and they can be a person,
yep,
not just be seen as some homeless person on the street, but be who they are,
yep.
and
And I think that's why it's so hard to get big businesses involved in it,
yeah.
because they understand when they see the problem, the amount of money that it is going to take
Oh yeah.
to solve the problem, and it's
100%.
not
and
there's
and
no financial gain to it.
I've even talked a little bit I've even thought a little bit about that, like, if I ever get to that point where I reach that status, that celebrity status, to where I know people within the industry, doing like a yearly like concert series where
Yep,
it's big name artists that are out there at a concert, and proceeds of it go to this charity that are helping veterans and giving them a place to stay and building them into
yep.
becoming functioning civilians. You know,
Well, brother, you ever do it, you let me know, and I will help you any way I can, man.
absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely. Hey, Scotty, I appreciate you coming on the show, brother. I
Yeah,
mean,
man. Thank you.
I can't wait
I
to
think
see
we,
where
we
you're
got we
going.
got off talking it a couple times, but we're back.
Yeah, that's good, man.
Listen, I, I
Well,
like I like sharing my music, but I will talk all damn night, man. You give me the opportunity, I'll talk. I got no
yeah,
problem.
no, I'm the same way, brother. And that's what I love about podcasting.
Absolutely,
And
man.
when I'm in the process of moving to a bigger place, so I'm gonna
Heck
have
yeah,
my own little studio set up and everything. So
that's
when I
awesome.
get when I get this radio going, I'll even have some talk shows on there, brother.
Hell yeah, there we go. Awesome.
Well, I appreciate it, Scotty, and
Yeah, man. Thank you for
I
having
will,
me, man. I appreciate it.
man. I'm blessed that you came on, and the work that you're
Glad to
doing
be here.
is tremendous. You know,
Thank you. Thank you.
so I will we'll get this all edited up, and I'm gonna put it. I'll be on the air. I'll go on air Friday night. So in two
Awesome.
nights.
Cool.
So I saved a spot for just this episode.
Heck yeah, man. Love that. Thank you.
All right. Hey, I appreciate it, Scotty.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
All right. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Friday night down at the Legion Bar, Bill opened up a box of old cigars. Said on this day back in '69, I lost a best friend of mine. Connor said that's the place I've been, but it was 2010 Afghanistan. He raised his glass, said here's to friends and their ultimate sacrifice. Yeah, the times and places, they may change, but one thing stays the same. The story manager says next round for me. I spent some time overseas. Tonight's my first night behind this bar. Bill handed him a cigar. Well, the faces and the pictures, they may change, but one thing stays the same. The stories that they tell about going through hell. If you think they wouldn't do it all over again, well, you just don't know them. The memories that they own of the ones who didn't make it home, yeah, sure do miss them, but they keep them on living in the stories that they tell. Yeah, some will laugh and some will cry. Sometimes they'll wonder why. And I've been there, so I wrote this song. I know the need to carry on. The stories that they tell about going through hell. If you think they wouldn't do it all over again, well, you just don't know them. The memories that they own are the ones who didn't make it home. Yeah, they sure do miss them, but they keep them on living in the stories that they tell.